It's Lil Baby.
Good. Welcome to episode 30 of Conversations with Chai. I'm your host, Ihram Chowdhury, aka Lil Baby Ram Ram. And today I have, it's actually so exciting, and I want to give you your little spiel, but a trailblazer in the South Asian media thing. I have the founder and CEO of Brown Girl Mag. I have Trisha Sakhuja-Walia.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, Trish.
Thank you for having me.
No,
I'm excited.
absolutely. I want to start by honestly giving you your flowers, because this platform, I only really can give it to two platforms for allowing this platform to exist. You and Pop Shift, right? I looked up one day and I was like, wow, there exists South Asian media. Because at the end of the day, that's really what this truly ends up being, right? And for me to exist, it really only came from the backs of the work that you guys have been putting in for years. Even when I was in college, seeing Brown Girl Mag, right? Something even with that name, I was like, oh, what is this, right? Because growing up, we didn't have anything that existed at that space, right? Especially anything that looked like it was of our time, right? We had Bollywood media coverage, right? We had that, but we didn't have anything that covered here, right? And what was going on here, and seeing y'all cover the things that were going on in South Asian space here, because there's so much going on, gave me the belief that something like this could even exist, right? Oh, there's enough people that actually care for Brown Girl Mag to exist, so something like this can exist. So first of all, I want to thank you for doing that, because I know you're doing this now full time, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I truly appreciate the work that y'all have been putting in, because everybody who now comes up really has to give Brown Girl Mag and Pop Shift the real flowers for allowing us to exist in this space. Because it's not just me, right? We were talking about it a little bit off mic, right? It truly is a renaissance of our time, and that comes from an established platforms already being existing in the space.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. Thank you so much. I mean, I think I live and breathe by the concept of abundance over scarcity, whether you're a best friend, a close friend, a cousin, a family friend, or my husband, they all know that I live and breathe by abundance over scarcity. And my biggest goal at Brown Girl from day zero of buying it out was, how can we create 200 types of Brown Girl? And I don't mean just Brown Girl Mag. I mean the work that you're doing, the work that Pop Shift is doing, the work that the folks at Kolkata Jai are doing, so on and so forth. There's so many amazing communities, companies, organizations that are just uplifting who we are. And I think the only reason we can do it is because we're all trying our best to do it together. So you reaching out, thinking of us and tagging us, collaborating with us, I mean, that goes a long way, right? Because for me, I have to think about the next gen, and I've been thinking about the next gen for a really long time. So I'm not doing this just for millennials. And I realized very early on that if I don't evolve and attract Gen Z, I'm going to lose the momentum. And so living with the mindset of abundance over scarcity is the only way to run Brown Girl.
I think that makes me really happy for you to say, because I am curious to what the long-term vision of a Brown Girl Mag that's already so established. I know you're not done, right? Obviously, you took it over full time. I know that you bought out your co-founders, right? So I know that you have a long-term vision for it, and I'm very curious as to what that is, right? Because I agree. I think that needs to be a tying of all of us, right? Because I always say that people do this, by do this, I mean, people are in this space and care about this from around 20 to 30, right? And then they kind of just fall off, right? Life gets in the way, especially as South Asians, right? People want to have kids, people start families, right? And then the creative, the media part of it kind of dies out, right? But you're somebody who's now been doing this since, when did you do this full time? 2017, right? 2017? 2018, you've been doing it full time, right?
Yeah.
But there has to be a long-term vision, because I always say I'm so staked in on y'all's success, right? As far as you guys go, that just shows me okay, that ends up becoming possible, right? For what I was saying earlier, right? That the fact that y'all made this level possible gives me something to shoot for. Right? Obviously, you want to make sure that, hey, the baton is somewhere high, so then the next person that takes it can take it even further. Because I always think about it, I was like, yo, I would love to see a South Asian late night show.
Exactly.
That's something that couldn't exist 5 years ago. I don't even know if it could exist now, right? But I think I see it though. like I see it because I'm all like, okay, like y'all are doing red carpets, right?
Yep.
We're doing Coachella.
Yep.
We're already in these like mainstream spaces and we're still going, right?
Yep.
You're still building, right?
Yep.
Pop Shift is still building, right? I'm here behind, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody with me is still here behind. So where else can we take this? Do you ever think about that, like in your spot?
Every day. Literally every day. I'm thinking about what's next literally every day. And that's the only thing that keeps me motivated, is to really make sure that my biggest aspiration is one day, like, my grandkids of grandkids are reading a book that's just the first of everything. I cannot wait to just make a coffee table book that says the first of all things South Asian, whatever that title may be. But I want our kids of kids to know that Brown Girl was one of the first to see the red carpets, to see the Coachellas, to see the mainstream blockbusters. And I hope that we continue to do that way beyond the first. The sky's so the limit. And so it really goes back to the big vision, which is I'm creating the future of media. Brown Girl truly is what we hope media and community building can look like. And at Brown Girl, we're running the company on 3 very important pillars: content, community, and commerce. Editorial content is what you've known us for. I always say that Brown Girl is truly a mini Google for everything South Asian. You type in a word into Google that's South Asian centric, very likely something that we have written or covered in some capacity will pop up. From the editorial content came the paid content. That's how we first started essentially turning the lights on for real when I bought the company and went full time. So that's the first C, content. That's really the precipice of our community and what we've built so far. The second is community, which is community building, and those are the events. So us doing events across the country, whether it's Austin, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Jersey, you name it, that has allowed us to, of course, gain traction really in a very niche way. And then number 2, generate revenue again from the ticket sales and the sponsorships that come with us. They start on digital and then they move into community. And the third C is commerce. We've had our own clothing line called Ladki Power. And we've had our own anthology that we published at the height of the pandemic called Untold. And it was a collection of 32 stories written by South Asian authors. And we covered everything: deportation, colorism, casteism, you name it. We did our best to cover it. The point of the 3 Cs is essentially to build an ecosystem. I want to give South Asians a lot more than just a website or a TikTok page or an Instagram account. I want to give them essentially a lifestyle brand that when you're reading something, you may not even realize it's sponsored because it's good and it's gravitating. And then you may come to an event and you may not even realize it's a Brown Girl event because maybe we've hosted it for another brand. And then I want you to buy our book. And this year I want you to buy our debut print mag that will hopefully come out in the fall. So essentially I want you to be so immersed into this Brown Girl universe per se that it's so a part of your psyche. It's so a part of your lifestyle. And I think once I can really tap into the South Asian diaspora in that way, then everyone else can honestly follow suit. There's no reason why your podcast can't turn into that same lifestyle ecosystem-driven approach where you take this pod and you turn it into merch and you turn it into courses, so on and so forth. You turn it into in-person events, which you've already done with Suede, right? So that was a great example. So I think where we're at right now, it's going to take multifaceted approach to really evolve.
And that's why I really was excited to have this conversation with you, right? Because I understand that, like, when I see Brown Girl, I see it being run like a true business, right? And that's like the game that I hope that you can, and based off of like what you're even saying, that the people that are in like where I'm kind of at, like where we're still building, can kind of like look at you and see like, yo, it does need to be a sustainable business for the things that you mentioned, right? For it to be a true community, for it to truly be something that's lasts outside of just you.
Correct.
Right? It has to be sustainable from a business front, right? Like I'm very important on that, right? And I'm excited to hear that you are thinking about it like that. Obvious, right? Just based off of how Brown Girl moves around as a business and as an organization, right? Because when I say like, hey, this needs to be, I always say like, we're only time away. Right? We're only time away. We're only time away from, hey, if you build this out 5 more years, that's 5 more years of building out community. If I do this for 5 more years, right? It's 5 more years of growing this audience. Like I'm not falling off, right?
Same.
Brown Girl's not falling off. You're not putting your foot off of the gas. But for us to be able to do that for the next 5 years, the business has to make sense.
Exactly. That's been the hardest part.
And I'm sure you've seen the flip as soon as you went full time, right? You're like, oh, this is now the thing that I'm pushing forward, right?
Absolutely.
Like being able to have somebody who's able to give it their all and their focus, like that is super important, because it's like, oh, you aren't doing this as like a hobby.
Right.
Because then it truly reflects that. It becomes, oh, it looks like, oh, this is just done as a hobby. Oh, this is just a website. Or,
Right.
oh, this is just a podcast.
Right.
Right? Like like me and you, I think both understand that. Like this is like, I always joke around, people still think that this is a podcast.
Right.
Right? People
It's a
think
lot
Brown
more.
Girl Mag is just a website, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Folks say it all the time, like, I love your page. And I wish I could just give them like a 15-minute rebuttal of how much they hurt my heart when they say I love your page. Cause I'm like, let me tell you about my 3 C's. But no, I get it. Right. And so that's what I want to go beyond that. I want to go beyond a page. I want to go beyond a website. Again, I just want to be so seeped in to your lives and then to your children's lives that Brown Girl is basically like wearing a pair of Jordans. Like, look how many generations have come, and we all still love Jordans the same way we did when we were in middle school and high school. I still feel just as cool if and when I wear one, which is very rare now because heels, but that same feeling of this is home. I'm comparing it to the shoes, but that's how I feel at Brown Girl.
But I'm glad that you want to rebut, and I hope that you do rebut, right? Because I think it's important that I think it's probably better that you do it than I do it, because when I talk like a big game of like, yo, this is not just a podcast, right? I sound like an arrogant, narcissistic, egotistic, right? But I think it's important that we treat it that way, right?
We have to.
Because when you say that Brown Girl is just a page, it's actually diminishing what it truly is, right? When you say that this is just a podcast, you're diminishing what it truly is. Because for it to be intergenerational, like nobody ever says like, oh, Complex is just an Instagram page.
Totally.
Right? No, Complex is a whole media outlet.
Yeah, they're a big inspiration.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Complex Mag is a whole media outlet. It's been around since the beginning of hip hop.
Yeah.
It exists today. It has multiple shows, multiple things. It drives culture for that culture.
Right.
Right? Which is kind of what, like, when I know you're good, because anytime I see somebody who's like, oh, like this person's South Asian and this person's like doing something, I immediately see who follows them. Of course, it's Trisha, right? I'm watching I'm watching the Nickelodeon doc right now, right? And I think one of the writers / producers, she's a South Asian woman, right? And I go to her page because I'm watching the thing, and I'm like, oh, Trisha's there. But that's so important, because I don't even know everything that's going on in our community. I try to keep track.
Yeah.
Right? But having something like a Brown Girl to be able to reference and be like, oh, these are all the people.
Right.
These are all the things that are going on in my community.
Absolutely. I think that's my favorite part about Brown Girl, is that we've thankfully managed to become so universal that I love that Brown Girl one day can be so tech driven. The next day we can do a music release. The next day we can do a film premiere. Then the next day I'm promoting like a luxe beauty brand. Then I'm doing, a collaboration on Diwali Mela. Like, I love that Brown Girl has become so multifaceted. It plays so many faces. And I think one of my biggest intentional ways of growing Brown Girl is making sure that I continue to be behind the scenes. And that's been tough, but also a blessing for me, because Brown Girl essentially protects me, and I get to make Brown Girl whatever I want it to be on that daily basis. And it has nothing to do with my life or my personality. I always say Brown Girl's like the really like sage, wise, smart girl, and I'm just hanging by. I'm surviving, my personality is so different from Brown Girl, which I genuinely love, because when you see Brown Girl, I want you to see it for this universal ecosystem platform that it is. And I'm grateful that you can already say that you see that. That just makes me a very happy person.
I always say the things, and it's a testament, and probably why Brown Girls is as successful as it is because we all, when we're building these things, right? Everyone and that's how I know that you're doing it for the right reasons, right? Is because it's not about you, right? This podcast is not about me, right? Because if it is, then that's all it's ever going to be, right? It lives and dies by me. For it to be intergenerational, for it to be something bigger than that, it has to stand for something bigger than that. It has to stand for the community, right?
Yeah.
It has to be for something, right? Yeah. And I think that when I think about like Brown Girl in that sense, like I think about, hey, you are now in a unique position. I hope that you I'm sure you understand the gravity of that, are in the unique position where you're kind of a gatekeeper / tastemaker to what is showing up?
Absolutely.
Right? Like what is coming to our community, right? And I don't know like how vigorously you're vetting those, right? And I'm sure you are, right? Because I always say like when somebody shows up on a brown girl, for you to even do this, right? It means like the world to me because I'm like, oh, it's like a Trisha stamp, right? Like it's a brown girl stamp because that is an important thing because the way and the trust that you've built within the community, that ends up being so important because it's like the musical artist that you're co-signing, the red carpet events that you're co-signing, the movies that you're co-signing, right? Because it's Brown Girl Mag Presents, right? Those people are going to get eyes on them, right? And those eyes are valuable, right?
Absolutely.
So now that you're in this position, it ends up being like, hey, you're a gatekeeper in this to a pretty significant degree.
Yeah, the burden's real. I feel it every day. I don't take it lightly. Every single day we receive hundreds of emails and DMs, and I'm so grateful for them. But everything starts off with an inbound message of, hey, I am this and I am doing this and I would love your help and your support in this. And every single day, the team and I behind the scenes are vetting through hundreds of folks that are essentially nobody's today, but they are somebody's tomorrow. And I love that so much that we have covered probably the most nobodies than anyone else. We have been probably the easiest yes when it comes to your first press beyond any other press. And I'm grateful that we've been that stepping stone platform that is now slowly evolving into that next phase. Even when you've got your first, second, third, fourth hit, people are still coming back to Brown Girl. So we are casually, organically growing from being that stepping stone platform to now, oh shoot, like that person has a movie in Hollywood and they still are calling Brown Girl to get an Instagram live or to get press. That's been truly organic. But I think my first approach in everything has been the less gatekeeping, the better. And I think that's truly fundamentally who I am. I did Brown Girl because I was sick of being left out. I did not know more than 5 words of English when I came here, to the point where I cried at my first ever pizza party in kindergarten because I didn't know what pizza was. Like, pizza traumatized me for years. And so the approach that I've always taken at Brown Girl is say yes as much as you can say, humanly possible, as much yeses as you can say, do it. Collaborate until you cannot collaborate anymore. And open your heart and your mind to possibilities that you would have never expected. All of those 3 things have allowed me to build the pillars of the community, but it has come with real sacrifice of not being able to grow the business aggressively.
So this is where I want to push back, right? I understand that mindset, right? And this is where I want to push back because Brown Girl has now established itself to a certain tier, right? And I get the request and I get wanting to help, right? But that is no longer, I don't think, the place of Brown Girl and yourself, right? Like, you're now in full advancement mode, or it should be, right?
Correct.
Like, you're now focused in on the red carpet. It's like the nobody down there, again, there's always going to be somebody that you want to be co-sign and stamp, right? But it's just not sustainable, right? For you, because it dilutes like the product, right? You as a team, your team, right, has a limited bandwidth and has a limited number of things that you can do, right? Every post, every story on the Brown Girl page, right, is valuable, right? And whether you have a quantifiable value to it, there is a quantifiable value to it. So when you're consistently doing it for too many, because now we have enough.
Correct.
Like, we're no longer in the zone as South Asians where it's like, oh, there's not enough of us, so we all gotta look at each other, right? Still should be supporting each other.
Correct.
But I'm saying that Brown Girl is no longer the platform for that. Let these other podcasters, whatever, talk to these people who are quote unquote nobodies and let's see what they build, right? But Brown Girl has established a tier where it's like, no. Oh, Dev Patel is gonna, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna go cover the Monkey King thing, right? Like, that's gonna be like, that's Brown Girl's status in all of this now, right? So my pushback would be like, absolutely get the help, right? But it's like also like, hey, like you got to be in full advancement mode, right? Because wherever you take it, that's where everybody else is kind of sprinting to now.
I appreciate that. I really do. It's hard to look at what you're doing when you're so heads down. And I think that this is the first year-ish, year and a half, 2 years where I haven't had the opportunity to say as many yeses as we want to, because quite frankly, this is probably the first time that I am really looking at the business from a business standpoint and going, dude, my whole team is going to leave me because they're burnt out already. They're all slashies, right? They're all doing this as freelancers. They're all part-timers. I'm still the only full-time person at Brown Girl. So it breaks my heart that this is the first time we are saying not right now to a lot of editorial work, and also not right now to just a lot of event collaborations. I'm helping in other small ways, but it's tough because I'm just who I am as a yes man. That's just who I am. It's a blessing, but it also does hurt us day to day because we do get stuck in the day to day. There are countless days where I'll be promoting, pushing, supporting 10 other things before I think about Brown Girls event, before I think about Brown Girls, tickets that I have to push, because there's always 10 things before us. And every day I'll choose, okay, should I be pushing out Ladki Power today and sell our products? Or should I be pushing out a new candle brand that I signed a campaign with? And because I'm working with hundreds of small South Asian businesses, last year we did 150 campaigns. This year we'll probably end up doing more or less the same. 150 brand campaigns essentially means I'm thinking about 150 businesses' ROIs, and I'm thinking about their finances. And I'm thinking about, okay, if they've given me 2K, 3K, 4K, I got to justify that. So I'm talking to them about how they see their revenue, what their ad channels are. I'm constantly brainstorming with other businesses about other businesses. And it's tough.
Listen, I get that, right? I get that because you want to bring, you don't want, and that's probably, again, back to why Brown Girl is successful, because you don't want to just bring, they wrote me a check, right? That check comes with a responsibility.
Correct.
That's what people don't realize, right? That
real.
check comes with a real responsibility. Again, that's the people who are sustainable. Anybody can get a quick, I always say this to random content creators, right? I was like, oh, you think that you got one up on them because they sent you a free product and you made a quick 30-second TikTok video, or you got $300 and you made a quick TikTok video, but they never got an ROI on you, right? And therefore it's you didn't add real value to them, right? You didn't add real value, so they're never gonna, that's actually an opportunity, that's a disservice not only to you as a creator, but now that's a disservice to every creator that potentially looks like you. Every podcast that does a bad business deal is a disservice to me, because then the next person that maybe would have given me a deal, they'd be like, you know what? When we cut them $1,000,
that's what happens.
Nothing, we didn't really get anything out of it. Yeah, but they're not me, right?
Yeah.
Brown Girl isn't Joe Schmo, who's doing random editorials, right? You know how many media things just reach out to us to be like, yo, can we do an editorial? There's no value in it.
Yeah.
I even know that there's no value in it. But because Brown Girl has that value, right? It ends up being the bar for what gets co-signed has to be high, right? Complex Mag is not doing random features on random SoundCloud artists, right? They might find one diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not just everybody, because again, what you're saying, it's a use of resources. It's a use of your bandwidth. It's a use of your team's bandwidth, right? Yeah. And it's not like you have a shortage of things to focus on.
Oh, the abundance is everything I wanted. The abundance over scarcity. Oh, it's real.
Oh, no, it's real. I went on the, doing my research. I'm on the Brown Girl page and I'm all oh, Brown Girl has a podcast. Brown Girl has Brown Boy. Brown Girl has I'm all who's running all of this? Yeah. How big is your team?
It's all freelancers. I'm grateful for it. At a given time, I've always had anywhere between 100, 150 freelancers.
100 to 150 freelancers?
All over the country, all over the world, for sure. Yep, always. And then this is the first couple of years where we've really, really cut down. There was a point where we had a good 300. But right now, I'd say about 50 to 75 very active. So I have the Brown Girl team, and then I also have the Slashy Summit team.
Sure. You understand. You're running a pretty large company at this point, right?
If they were all full-time, it'd be even cooler, but I'm grateful.
No, but even that, managing again, right?
It's a lot of people.
Yo, my team is 2 people, and managing that is on a week to week on this is a lot of work, right? This is bro, I put in 80 hours a week on this, right? So imagine running, and that's why I'm saying your time, right? Again, Brown Girl's time, but your time ends up being so valuable, and where you're distributing that, because now you're in the position of yo, I need to go find other people that are going to take this business as seriously as me.
That's the next step. And I have so many of those folks that take it 1,000,000% seriously behind the scenes. And there are so many people at the point where they're willing to take crazy salary cuts just so that they can really, really, really dig their feet deep into the work they're doing at Brown Girl, because they're only able to do it maybe 2 or 5 hours out of the day. But many of them want to give me the 30, 40 hours of the week. I just can't wait to get to that place where we too can have at the very least 3 to 5 full-time people. And then the rest of the team can continue to be that hybrid freelance part-time model, right? Which I think I'm grateful for at Brown Girl, because we've proven the remote freelance gig economy way before the pandemic, because that's the only reason Brown Girl had continued to survive. That's the only reason we've kept our overhead so low, is because I've just had remote freelancers all over, and I've had WeWorks here and there. But I'm grateful we proved that model out. And now people are like, wait, I can work from home too. I'm like, Brown Girl's been doing it already.
Yeah, no, but again, what you're talking about is a very big shift that you have to actively make, right?
Yeah.
You went from surviving, like, can this even exist?
Yeah.
Yo, you've proven.
We had no money.
You've proven
Yeah.
this can now exist, right? But now it's about like expansion, right? Like I always say, like, and it's not, I hate saying it like this, right? Because people always think that I only care about the money, right? But it's not about the money. It's more so the ability to continue to expand this thing.
Correct.
Right? Like for you to now, hey, we've proven the proof is in the pudding, right?
Correct.
Brown Girl exists, Pop Shift exists, right? But now it's like, how do we become like behemoths, right? How do we
Correct.
become conglomerates, right? Because that's my goal for this. I was like, yo, like, don't stop being hungry because now like you have like X amount of Instagram followers or X amount of people are like tuning in, right? It's like, no. Now how do we bring that even further, right?
Yep.
Now how do we go from like the hundreds of thousands to millions, multi-millions? Think about how many people, South Asian people there are in the world.
Yeah, there's no dearth, and people say all the time, I was just at South by Southwest last week and I went to a bunch of non-South Asian events. And even at South Asian events, I do get this question, but I get it a lot more when I'm at non-South Asian events and folks are like, well, what about Latinx? What about Black Americans? What about those brown girls? Are you ever going to cover those brown girls? And my answer is always so simple and it's so easy. Well, sure, I can, and maybe I will organically, but I don't need to right now because I just need to do it for my people. That's it. Because their people are doing it for their people and they're doing it really well and they're doing it really abundantly and with really good revenue as well. I just got to keep doing it for my girls and my South Asian community. So I'm not concerned about growing Brown Girl into any other space but the South Asian diaspora because there's more than enough of us to cover us for the rest of time.
And that makes me really happy to hear, right? Because I like look at it that way, right? I'm all like, yo, because hip hop media exists, right? And that's cool, right? And they've been able to establish this thing where it's like it started off as a Black art form, right?
Correct.
But now it's this universal thing, right? And I'm all like, oh, I'm starting to see that in the South Asian space, right? Like I'm starting to see some of our music, some of our cultural things escape into the mainstream, right? And I'm all like, oh, no, y'all don't understand, right? Like there's a bunch of us, right? And for the longest time, we've had to go towards other cultures because there was nothing for us.
Yeah.
But now I can I can exist.
We are the culture.
We are the culture, right? And I hate saying it like that because it sounds corny, but we are the culture, right? Like you are a cultural figure in our culture, right? Pop Shift is a cultural thing in our culture, right? Yeah. Like I look at like stars that we have, right? Like she may not be, and she is a star in mainstream now because of Mean Girls, but Avantika is a star in our culture. Hassan is a star, but Hassan's a star of our culture, right? And I think like people kind of tend to overlook that. It's like, no, y'all don't understand, right? Like these people, like we've had to do that because that's where the money was. But now, you know how much money South Asians have? I don't need to go anywhere for any dime. I can go within. It made me so happy like that I was able to do a deal with a South Asian brand. Cause I'm like, how insane is that? That I didn't have to go ask like a Spotify or like a White Claw to go give me money, right? I could go down the block to some guys who look like me and they have the money - revenue to be like, yo, let's write him a check.
Exactly.
Like let's believe in the thing that looks like us.
Absolutely. But I need more of us to think like that because I think so much of us are stifled with the notion of if they get the approval from mainstream media, if they get the big checks from the Walmarts and the Targets and the Nordstrom, then we will write them a check. And that has happened to Brown Girl, and I have witnessed that. But because we were so on the early onset of this South Asian renaissance that it's almost tough now to want to seek validation from my community when my community is so hell-bent, not everyone, but when my community is so hell-bent on the validation of mainstream platforms and mainstream brands. But I have looked to my community for that validation. I didn't need Nordstrom to co-sign Brown Girl for the Diwali campaign. I was celebrating Diwali anyways. Do you know what I mean? But the second we had done, thankfully, a very cool Diwali campaign with Nordstrom, everyone was like, oh, wait, Brown Girl celebrating Diwali with Nordstrom? Cool. I want to do the same next year. So again, it's a blessing, but it's also, hey, look, let's look at ourselves and actually validate ourselves and give each other that pat on the back that I really needed in the beginning days. Again, many of them did, but more could have done it too, right? And same for you. I'm happy you didn't have to go outside of the community for a check, and I'm grateful as well. I'm here today on the backs of thousands of small businesses that have allowed me to generate revenue, but at the end of the day, not many of us still are co-signing each other, and we're only doing it once our billboards are on Times Square.
And absolutely agree, right? Because for us to actually make it on a consistent level, right? You need each other. We need each other, right? Because if you let mainstream co-sign and decide who's going to be like the star,
correct,
they're only going to allow so few of us.
Then it's really gatekept.
It truly is gatekept, because then it's like that token, like the token brown person, right?
Yeah.
Or the token media person, right? It's like, oh, that's just because you don't actually have power, right? Like, again, you can get canceled like that. Everyone's trying to take Jay Shetty down right now, right? And I was like, oh, that's because he's created, again, they're not going to be able to because he's already surpassed that, right? But the fact that they even think that they can do that is because they think that, oh, we co-signed him, we can take him away.
Correct.
Nobody can, although Nordstrom came to you, and this is the part about ownership that's so important that people overlook, right? Because Nordstrom came to you with a check, you were able to do that, right? But if Nordstrom didn't come to you with a check, Brown Girl still is going to exist.
Correct.
And people overlook that. It's like, oh, like I want to be like this co-signed mainstream thing, right? It's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But the same way that they built you here is the same way they can get you the fuck out of here.
Correct. That you saying that is just, it's really good validation for me personally, because you're right. I say it all the time. I didn't need mainstream press or brands to validate the work that we were doing. I was already out here hustling and just building one brick at a time at Brown Girl. And funny story, when Nordstrom came, what I did was I said, hey, look, these are the 10 small businesses that actually celebrate Diwali. Can I bring all of these products into my video campaign? Thankfully, Nordstrom said yes, but I had everyone from Modi Toys to Culture Khazana to just a plethora of others, and their products were just shown so beautifully and visually in this campaign. But I'm built on the backs of my South Asians, and I'm never going to forget that.
And it is important, right? Because like I don't want to also make it sound like, yo, at one point I'm not gonna go seek out one of those big dollars, right?
And we
like,
all should.
And we all should.
Absolutely.
But we all should under a specific thing. When somebody from outside of our culture comes to me or comes to you and says, yo, we want this because they see it as there's an ROI in it for us.
Of course.
Oh, I want it to be like, yo, you know what? Like, yo, let's go. Spotify just cut me a huge check, right? But then when somebody looks at this, I want it to be so authentic to this culture,
Correct.
right? I want it to be like when Nordstrom comes to you, I want it to be authentic to our culture, right?
Correct.
It's not like other white version brands of our things. No. It's like when they come up here, they're going to see a South Asian seltzer.
Exactly.
They're going to see South Asian fashion. They're going to see South Asian like makeup, right? They're going to see South Asian everything. Truly
That's
South
what
Asian
it was.
everything.
Yeah, that video is the best example of it. So they gave us, of course, a check to go shop and then a separate check for the campaign. Grateful for it. But when I went there to shop, I emailed them right away and I was like, wait a minute, actually, I realized there's nothing here that I can use for a Diwali campaign. Like I got cute glasses and pillows and plates, but I was like, I need real South Asian stuff for my dining table and for my couch, right? That's when that conversation started. And they could have easily said no, but if they said no, I would have walked away, because I've done that before. I've walked away from big checks that just didn't make sense. And I have thought about them 100,000 times. I've thought about losing that money 100,000 times, but at the same time, I've been thankful to myself that I just said no to bad money, because it just wasn't worth it. And I would have totally, there had been so many chances that I would have been canceled had I taken those checks. And I know that for a fact. And I can probably blur out 10 brands to you right now that you would have been like, you know what? Good thing you didn't take that money.
No, and that's huge, right? Like, yo, I posted something today, right? Where it was, a lot of y'all have taken from our culture and given nothing back and not given a thought to our community, right?
Right.
You took advantage of the community that was here,
right.
propped your own brand up, propped your own self up, and then as soon as you got some money, dipped out and never thought about it.
And that I see all the time, right? Because Brown Girl's been here from the start. We've been here from the sidelines. So I know the folks who've made it really big that still invite us, that still want us to feature them after their third big movie, right? After their big Sephora launch and their big Ulta launch. I already know those folks that continue to reach back out or even just send me a product, right? Like I don't need to do a paid campaign for you anymore because you're at Sephora. I get it. But if you send me a thank you gift box and you invite me to your big Sephora event, I know you're still thinking of me. And I know that you value what we did for you when nobody knew you and you weren't a household name, right? So I see the dichotomy of that day in and day out because I know the thousands of people that don't give a shit about Brown Girl because I get it. They're cool, they're big, they're mainstream. But then thankfully there's still thousands that will hit us up.
And I think that's like so like, and people like kind of overlook it. And I was like, yo, like, Avrani obviously just like launched with like Lily, right?
Avrani.
And I was like that, like, I want people to like really give like Lily her flowers for that too, right? Because she's in the position where you don't think like Lily's getting a million brand offers every day.
Yeah.
But the fact that she chose to do it with a South Asian brand, a true South Asian brand, right, speaks volumes, right? Because that's really what you need for us to be, because then there's not just one of us, right? Then it is a movement,
Correct.
right? Like, it's not like, oh, like as soon as we get to a certain elk, right, it's like, oh, we can just dip out, right? Because we don't need the culture anymore, right?
Yep.
It's like, yeah, but then it doesn't become what you said before. It doesn't become intergenerational.
Correct.
It becomes, oh, he's an anomaly.
Yep.
Like Russell Peters was an anomaly for his time, right? Like, but now because there's a true ecosystem, it's like, okay, like now we have a couple. Now there's a Nimesh. Now there's a Hassan, right?
Correct.
They're no longer anomalies. Now there's a bunch of us, right? Like, again, when you and Pop Shift are coming up, right? It's like, okay, like anomalies, right? Because there's only one or two of you. Right, but now we're not in that space anymore because of the work that y'all have put in. Because there's a true South Asian ecosystem. I don't look at it as like, yo, like I was like, yo, I don't have to compete with any of y'all.
Correct.
Like people, like I'm sure, I don't even know if they say it to you. People try to pit me against people.
I have to answer to it at least once a day, and that's bare minimum.
People try to pit me against platforms, right? They're all like, oh, like how did you feel that they did this? And I was like, yo, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yo, you think that like Hot 97 is concerned with what Complex is doing? Like they both fine, right? Like they both have huge salaries under. They're both fine, right? But it's that scarcity of like, oh, like there can only be a brown girl or there can only be a Pop Shift. I'm sure y'all coming up, people definitely pitted the two.
Not even coming up. It's happening every day. I mean, ask any friend of mine or even anyone that's in my close community. They will tell you my favorite line. My favorite line of all is, have you ever had Burger King and then not had McDonald's the next day? Did you not order Shake Shack the week after and then drop by Wendy's? I get all four back to back in a month. Like, call it what it is, right? Like, I don't understand why there can't be multiple brown girls. And if I have anything to do with it, I'll hopefully build the next brown girl.
No, for sure. And
of a different kind.
And that's, I think, where like the disservice is. I'm all like, yo, you guys are actually doing a disservice not only to us,
right, but to yourself,
by pitting it, but but yourself, right? Yeah. Because you're not allowing us to share resources and making us feel like, oh, there can only be one, right? You know, a lot of people even said, they're all like, are you sure you want to have Trisha on the pod? And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I? And they're like, oh, like, I was like, dog, like that does, like, I don't care. Like
absolutely.
that could only benefit like me.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that isn't anything like, oh, I have to like now space this away. Because how stupid would it be if I'm trying to build something within our culture and I'm not even talking to the people that are truly within our culture?
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate that. And I thought the same thing. I was like, you know what? He's onto something. And I want to be there from day zero. I really do. And that's my motivation for anything I'm doing is I want to be there from day one. When you do episode 300, I hope it's me hosting that event for you and we're just blowing it out of the water, right? And I could say I did episode 30 with you. Like, that's the kind of journey and that's the kind of roadmap that we need to build for the next generation. Because if they don't see it from us, who are they going to see it from, right? We grew up with our parents unknowingly pitting us against our sisters and our brothers and our cousins and our friends and our friends of friends. And they did it unknowingly. And I get it. And I'm willing to move past that. But I'm only going to move past that if I do better. And I already know that I have a few years on a lot of us here in this room. And I'm going to take those few years as not a bad thing, but as a good thing to say, hey, look, the few years that I have on me, let's actually cut that time in half for you and let's get matched up and actually do good work together. Because guess what? 5 years ago from today, when I was thinking of buying Brown Girl out, I didn't have someone like you that could give me the confidence or the validation or the motivation, right? Thankfully, I had enough people who did that for me, but not enough said, I'll write you a check. Not enough said, I'll give you a brand deal. It was literally me just making $100 here, $200 here, maybe $300 there. But it was constantly met with, hey, are you sure you don't want to go to law school? Are you sure you shouldn't just like go get a job, you know? And I bought Brown Girl out more than anything. So I had to pay back the 2 original founders that I bought it from. So the first 2 years of buying the business, I essentially made whatever revenue I could make, but I paid myself a salary, which then I got taxed on, but I used that salary to pay my founders back. Mm-hmm. So Brown Girl, even though we had some revenue coming in, we were operating at basically little to nothing, right? So, and then the pandemic hit. So the point is that I would rather meet you where you're at now and work together and speed things up for all of us and be aggressive in our approach, because the first few years of doing it, we were just so sidelined and we were just so siloed and we were just truly alone and we needed support. And that support goes way beyond financial. It goes truly, truly, truly like that pure-hearted support of, I want to see you win because I want to win.
No, because it's like, it is again, back to it being such a disservice, because when you're not saving the person behind you the time, then we only ever take it to that level, right? Like we can only ever take it to that level because it's like, oh, like we just couldn't make it to that spot, right? Because I had to spend the same amount of years you had to spend. I probably had to spend the same amount of years figuring those same things out. Whereas, hey, if I get the game, saves me 5 years. What do I do with those 5 years? Where do I get to take this because I was able to save those 5 years of making it sustainable? If I can make this sustainable in 1 year, right? Then, okay. So the next 5, I can go on like full expansion mode, right?
Exactly. I agree with that.
Trisha, I think we're wrapping up, but
let's do it.
We end every podcast with Call Your Shot presented by Jungly, where I ask our guests, a goal for yourself, Brown Girl, something next 3 years, 5 years, the whole purpose of it being you say it up here, and then hopefully I can see you watch and go build that thing or go do that thing and then be like, yo, you did that. So Trisha, call your shot.
Definitely. I definitely know what that shot is. I'm so clear about it. Crossing fingers, we do get to make it happen. But the ecosystem that we're building at Brown Girl, the content, community, commerce, I believe that ecosystem can be completed in many ways. But the next way to do it is by building a presence starting in New York City. It's by building a Brown Girl Clubhouse, a Brown Girl HQ, a Brown Girl Creative Studio, whatever you want to call it, essentially will be our home in New York. And I'm so excited about having a place that I can call home, that the community can call home for many reasons. The first is our own internal reasons. I'm hosting event after event. Last year we did 29 across the country. I'd love to be able to do some of those events in what I call home. Number 2 is the community that is already working with us, readers, writers, sponsors, folks like you, our friends. Next time when you're recording a podcast, please record it at the Brown Girl Studio. And third is I want to be able to give access to our readers in a membership form that can be treated just like a Soho House, just like the Wing. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm truly following the pathways of those other houses. All I want to do is make my house South Asian centric. So when you come in, maybe you won't get cappuccino, but you'll definitely get some Kolkata chai. You'll for sure get some jungli. There's no doubt about that. So that's what I want to build. I want to build the next big clubhouse in New York. Start here, then we move into Chicago, Toronto, LA. I mean, again, the sky's the limit, right? a brown girl clubhouse all over the world. That is truly the goal. And then, of course, we're still building the rest of the digital ecosystem anyways, right? We're still pumping out content. We're still doing the social media. We'll still have our Slashy Summit. But I think that this clubhouse, crossing fingers, will truly be hopefully the epicenter of it all.
No, I love to hear that. I love to hear that you're thinking like even bigger than just like, yo, this is not just a VAG, or this is not just a page. Trisha, I'm gonna say it again, but I truly appreciate everything that you've done and continue to do for our people, right? Because of people like you, like I get to do what I absolutely love, right? And that to me is like the biggest thing. So thank you, and yo, appreciate y'all listening. Peace.
That was great, y'all.
Yay!
Yeah, sorry.
It's truly like inspirational. Trisha, you're amazing.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you.